Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode, the second coming of Semper Fallis, where you're always dicked because we're always dicked. We, the people, are always getting dicked. And today we have some special stuff for you. So, Doc, why don't you tell us what we're getting into?
Yeah, so today we're going to lead off with the jobs report that came out from the manufacturing base with Joe Biden and the safe smoking kits that are going to go out to everyone to help out that racial equity. Foreign affairs, we'll probably touch on what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, the way that's going. We'd also like to dig a little bit into the death of Bob Saget and what's happening there. Gun control-wise, I think we're going to cover what's going on with the Sandy Hook 9, the $73 million lawsuit. And we'll probably touch on the Quintet Brown. If you haven't noticed, he's one of those guys who was part of that movement for gun control and then recently just shot up Democratic potential.
It was a mayoral candidate's
office. And then finally, we'll close it out and we'll probably talk about the Freedom Convoy and the Emergency Act that Communist Trudeau has decided to evoke.
Yes.
So I'll let Alex take it off. Let's talk about these job numbers.
All right, so let me bring this up real quick. I'm going to let you all see what we're dealing with. We have a fun tweet from the POTUS himself.
I mean, if it's on the internet, he can't lie, right?
Of course. All right, so you can see here, I'm going to read it for you anyway, but instead of losing manufacturing jobs, since I came to office, America has added 375,000. In 2021, we saw the highest increase in U.S. manufacturing jobs in nearly 30 years. This is one of the most ridiculous things that could be said right now because these aren't new jobs. He's saying that he's adding these jobs, but this is just recovery. This is people coming out of the pandemic, people being allowed to go back
and I
to
wish there was a way for us to look at numbers.
Yeah, God forbid if there were a way to fact check.
Like a ledger somewhere or a bookie. I don't know.
Well, it turns out you can, for the most part. They haven't released the jobs data for February of 22, but I conveniently put together some data to answer the president's tweet. It turns out that you can pull up the jobs data for manufacturing, and this is shocking. This is all specifically manufacturing because that's what he mentioned.
Correct, that's what he mentioned.
So I didn't go looking into agriculture and stuff like that, but. So the numbers that you see on your screen, you might not be able to get a good look at it. Let's see.
That's a better view.
Okay. Well, anyway, so the numbers are represented in the thousands. So, 12,000 is actually 12 million. The way that it's written on the chart here. I'm assuming that, I'm not great at this. But anyways, it doesn't really matter because all you have to do is look at January of 2019 and compare it to January of 2022, before the pandemic started, and then where we are now when we're out of it. And it turns out that the manufacturing industry had more employment.
Correct.
This time, 2019.
No.
God, I don't know. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong deciding to pull the direct totals rather than just saying we've added. Which, by the way, is hard to find. If any one of you decides to go on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and start poking through the data, trust me, it's not fun. It's a lot of numbers, and it's hard to tell what really matters. But they love making charts about figures added, but they don't tell you what the figure was before.
Well, even the last president, when the pandemic started, and the numbers for people coming out of work, and then when people start to go back, it's like, hey, we added 250,000 jobs. It's like, no, 250,000 people finally went back to work.
Exactly.
Not to a new job, to their old job.
And I think maybe, just maybe, the reason why Joe Biden, if it was really him, it was probably a staffer, really. I don't think he use a smartphone or a keyboard.
He's always says the people that let him do this.
Yeah. But to write this tweet and claim it as fact, you've got to be high on crack.
Well,
conveniently.
Good. Nice segue, Alex.
Conveniently, I don't know if any of you have noticed, but I believe it was $30 million in grant money. Now that in the grand scheme of things in the United States budget and what they use for grants, that's really a drop in the bucket. It's nothing.
And it's HHS money.
Yeah. It's not really the amount of money that is an issue. It's the fact that they're going to earmark taxpayer dollars to
Right.
hand out drug kits, illegal drug kits,
Well, they're clean.
safe smoking,
Safe smoking kits.
safe smoking kits, kids.
This is building on what the federal government has in, I think, the last probably, 20 years has come out with these wanting to do like safe injectable drug sites where you can have the nurses on staff. They got the tourniquets out and the needles ready. And I'm like, is that really the approach we want?
Making it easier to do drugs.
Like people are gonna do drugs. I mean, like, hey, Alex, meth is legal tomorrow. You want to go do that?
Yes.
No.
No.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you could make all these things legal and no one's going to do them.
No.
I don't. And the premise of this whole thing was racial equity. What?
Okay, so actually, I totally forgot about that, and I wanted to bring that up because that irked me horribly.
Yeah.
Because that's not even soft bigoted racism.
That's full on government racism.
If anyone's looking at that comment, the idea that the executive order that Joe Biden put into place to create racial equity in underserved communities of minorities is what he's saying. He's trying to create racial equity in these underserved communities. How is it not racist to say that the only way to do that is to go to these communities who are minority communities, and what they need are crack pipes and meth pipes? That's saying nothing other than, now this is according to him, not me, our administration, they're saying that minorities, they're the only ones that do crack or something? Is that what they're trying to imply by
Well, when
that
they,
message?
yeah, when they, it's the whole racial equity aspect of the program, because you're literally saying it's black, brown versus white.
Yeah.
And of course, it's going to be targeted to the inner cities that have these problems with, cocaine, crack, heroin. And it makes no sense that there's a racial component to this. Maybe you could get me on board, but it goes back to last week when we said we don't understand why there's such a destruction of family and everything in the inner city.
Yeah.
And if America on the outside's doing so well outside these cities, why can't we get America what's working to go inside those cities? And I think sending out safe smoking kits to families isn't helping the problem. You're just kind of moving it along. You're not addressing the root causes of why. And maybe that would be a better resource to figure out why than to do that. This is wonderful. Tyrone Bigham strikes again.
Someone say crack?
Yeah, someone say crack. But the racial equity just, and the Democrats want to say all the time that they're the champions of the race. They're the champions of the black, brown community. I don't think you're helping them out at all here.
I think, how are you helping by distributing drug paraphernalia and a kit that essentially makes it easier to do drugs, and then they offer, essentially like methadone clinics and things like that. But they're also offering safe injection sites. So they're bringing the drugs to your community, and they're bringing the tools and equipment you need to do the drugs. How is that going to help your community? It seems like, they paint it like they're doing you a favor, but it's not even really a secret. They know that they're holding you back with this type of policy. I think that is a direct attack on minority communities.
So you think it's, the plantation of government, keep you on the plantation, you can't go away. The Democrats have been known to do that since the 1860s.
Well,
keeping them down so they can't do anything in advance.
Was it Johnson that, what it was? I don't know if you can even really say.
Don't do a Joe Rogan right now.
No, yeah. Lyndon B. Johnson.
He said, we'll get them.
Made a historical comment that I am not going to say here.
Nope.
Because I don't want to hear about it.
It was wrong. It was wrong.
But he essentially said the policies that they were doing were going to trap you and convince you to vote for them forever.
Yep. For the next 100 years, he said.
That's really what it was. So
the Democrats have proven once again that they're not for solutions. They're for keeping you the way it is and maintaining the status quo. And that's the way it looks like it's going to go with this president right here.
Oh yeah. It's always an attack. It's fluffed up numbers or fraudulent claims or an attack. It doesn't seem like this administration offers anything of substance or of value. It seems like every time they get on the podium, whether it's PSAC or Biden himself,
Pisaki.
they're not offering anything but, like what is it? I don't know, platitudes. They're just throwing out platitudes.
Yeah, conjectures and platitudes.
Yeah, or circling back and never answering the question. And the same. I mean, this is happening in every government.
Oh yeah,
right
absolutely.
Now. Like, if you look at the Canadian government, I mean, Trudeau is nothing. That guy is useless. He can't answer a question. But
he had the audacity in Parliament to say that if you're on the conservative side, you're for swastikas and the Confederate flag, while
that's just historically inaccurate.
While the member of Parliament who he was addressing, she is the survivor of Holocaust grandparents. And all she did was ask for an apology, and that guy took off. And I guess the rules and decorum of Parliament say that she can't really speak out against it because he wasn't there to face. I don't understand Canadian politics all that well.
Yeah, no, me either. But you know what? Fidel Trudeau,
yeah.
He's apparently taken complete control. If it's my understanding, they have 7 days to contest this in their Parliament, the emergency authorization. I mean, I'm not following it.
And it's a 30-day act that he gets literally almost carte blanche. He can go into all the sectors. He can. It's ugly.
But he's already started acting. Is he? I don't know, but I'm curious. Is he able to act in those 7 days that they're allowed to deliberate the topic? Because
I believe
he'd
so.
have to wait until the Parliament has decided whether or not to grant him that power. But it seems like he is allowed to act with that emergency war power immediately.
I just have such issue and contempt with the way the Canadian federal government has handled the situation as compared to how they handled the BLM protesters last year. It's night and day, and the polarization of it is just it's deafening.
Yeah.
And I think Justin Trudeau has a lot to answer for in the next coming weeks with what's going on.
And you know what? I mean, the crazy thing about all of this, he is so backed into a corner now where he is using, I mean, it's desperation. He's thrown everything he can at them. The local police have backed off. The tow trucks have backed off. Almost every outlet that he could rely on to enforce his will by decree, mind you, not a legal will, have pretty much told him to go kick rocks, or said, hey, if we wanted to do business after this, we wouldn't have a clientele because you're asking us to eviscerate the trust between our clientele, which is the heavy truck community.
Yeah, why not just have them come to the table and sit down and talk? That's all they've asked for.
Well, and they're only asking, I mean, if you go on Twitter, you'll think it's something else. But
of course,
the organizers of the Freedom Convoy all they're asking is to end the mandate. And you look across the globe, and countries all over, scattered all over, are ending the mandates. I mean, stripping every aspect of
Belgium,
the
France, keep going. They're pulling them. They have to.
And so the thing that I find interesting is, it seems at this point that everyone is aware of the efficacy or inefficacy or ineffectiveness, I don't know, of the COVID vaccine. You know, at this point, people that are against the mandate aren't against the vaccine, because almost everyone that I know that is against the mandate has received multiple vaccines.
Correct.
It's just this particular one, and the way they're making you lick the boot in order to go back to your daily life.
Yes, with the king's permission, can I come back into my country?
Yeah, but you never actually go back to your daily life, because now you got a card or a QR code or your social credit score. You know, you got to show them your papers to do all this stuff. Like, it's not normal, and that's what people are actually standing against. And you have people, celebrities even, that have bragged about, you know, getting the vaccines, or getting their boosters, and then next thing you know, they're sick, or next thing you know, they die.
Well, you've seen the athletes across Europe, the soccer players this season just dropping.
Yeah.
News reporters across the world in middle of session, and I think you got a clip of a comedian that happened sometime this week.
Well, I don't think hers was from the vaccine. Or it could have been. It could have been part of the skit, or
She hit hard.
The way she hit her head.
There's no protecting yourself on that one.
But I wanted to lead into this. I mean, it was a few months ago when you were really immediately removed if you talked about the possibility of death or adverse reactions from any vaccine, specifically this one. At that time, I can't remember this guy's name, and I'm kicking myself because of it. He was a bodybuilder that ended up being a movie, like an actor. He wasn't the key player. I think he was in Gladiator, but he was out. He was celebrating that he got the third vaccine, the third shot, so the first booster.
Yep.
And he bragged about it, saying like, I'm so excited, I just got my third shot, this and that.
I get it.
Which is fine, because if you believe in it, then
go for it.
Go ahead and tout what you're doing.
Get on with your bad self.
Yeah, they found him dead. They found him dead like 2 days later on his boat from cardiac incidents. However, if we're being objective, he did have a cardiac history.
Okay.
But that doesn't change the fact that just days before he was bragging about getting the third shot.
Right, and I guess that'll segue into what happened with Bob Saget. Is he was kind of saying the same thing, and then
it's exactly
he died. Like
he literally just on social media, I believe it was on social media, just mentioned and just announced, if you will, which is weird, that he got his booster. He just said he got his booster, so that means he's fully vaccinated plus a booster. And now, so I don't know how many boosters he was on. I don't know if that was his third shot, fourth shot. I don't know where he's been. Depends on what country you're in. I think Israel's probably on their fifth at this point. I know they're on their fourth. I don't know if they're on their fifth. But he makes this comment, and then next thing you know, he's found dead.
What was he? He's on tour. My wife just saw them at the concert venue down the street here. They said it was great. He was funny.
He's always funny, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Danny Tanner funny.
No.
This is Bob Saget in your face. And, I mean, they said he's a pretty reasonable guy. He gave a round of applause for providers and first responders. And then, a month later, we're seeing this.
The dynamic personality, the dichotomy of his two different characters, it's night and day.
Yeah.
He was a wholesome but kind of sarcastic with innuendo dad on
Full House.
On Full House, and then you see him as a stand-up comedian in real life.
Was not ready for that.
And he is one of the dirtiest comedians ever, in the best way possible. But anyway, so he's found dead. There's going to be a little bit more to this, but so he's found dead, and at first, they're unsure as to what the cause is. And I won't lie. I mean, he's a celebrity. I don't know what he's into. So my initial impression was, oh, man, I wonder, did he do drugs or something? I didn't think he ever did.
Yeah, no, I had no inclination to think that.
That was my first thought. Then I saw that he just announced his booster, and where I went from there. I was like, oh, my God.
Got to dig a little bit.
Oh, my God. Now, though there's actually a little bit more after what I'm calling now, but now you get another report that he has a fractured skull or multiple skull fractures.
Yeah, it was multiple skull fractures.
Going from the back or base of his skull all the way to the orbitals, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever it was significant, all the way around the head. That they said is consistent with falling. When I say they, I just mean mainstream media. Once in a while I read them. That's consistent with falling 20 to 30 feet onto like a concrete, like something hard.
Yeah.
Or being assaulted with intent to kill.
So
like
direct trauma to the head.
Yeah. And so I heard that. I'm like, Jesus, but what? What could have done
From
that?
his hotel room too, right?
Yeah. Well, because the first time I heard that they thought he may have had an injury, like head trauma, and he had a brain bleed, I immediately went to, the tale of Billy Mays. And he just, as far as I remember, he just had overhead luggage that shifted in flight, that when he went to get it, it fell and hit his head.
Just hit him just right.
And it turned into a brain bleed, and he died. And so I was like, wow, did that just happen to Bob Saget? Did he just get that unlucky? But it didn't. Turns out must be much worse. So either he took a fall at some point and didn't realize it and made his way back to his hotel room.
Because he was found, this is all conjecture and speculation, but I guess the hotel workers came back into the hotel because they were checking on him because he hadn't checked out, and they found him like in bed, quote unquote, looked like he was sleeping. But and I guess you've been following up with like the coroner's report now.
Yeah, so the coroner, either the report was released or it was being released, and it immediately got shut down, and the family sued to protect the records, to prevent the release of the records. And as there's the cynical side of my mind that's immediate, like why do you want to hide the records? What's being hidden? But then there's the part of me that's understands protecting your loved ones and your family,
dignity,
and
right.
And so for anyone that's super concerned with Bob Saget's cause of death, I don't think we'll ever know, and the family doesn't have any obligation to tell anyone.
Nope.
And I don't know what the coroner's report is, the medical examiner, I don't know what it's going to prove, because we still don't know what happened before.
Right.
So unless they put together like a whole scene with,
really draw it out.
Yeah, and like it's something out of Dexter.
But I mean, at the same time, the family's trying to put their loved one
to rest
and go through the grieving process. And if you keep bringing that up, you're never going to get the process through.
Yeah. So let's, for the sake of Bob Saget's family, let's let one of the greatest comedians, but also like wholesome actor that everyone remembers as being the funny, great, loving dad from his, time on Full House. Let's let him go to rest. Let's let him lay to rest and not dig that up any further. But, talking about people that have been laid to rest. So I don't know if any of you have noticed, but this week in the news, the Sandy Hook victims, the families of the children that were victims at Sandy Hook, they just want a settlement with
Remington Arms.
Well, so it's being pushed in the news as they won the settlement with Remington Arms. That's how it's coming out in the news. And it's a massive settlement. And I'm not saying that they don't rate it, but nothing will replace what
the
they
children
lost.
Ever. No.
But they won $73 million, and I believe it was nine families. 9 families. So a substantial monetary victory. I wouldn't call it a victory.
And that was 2013.
It was a long time. I was in Newtown, Connecticut only shortly after.
Yeah, Adam Lanza, who was obviously, off the reservation.
Well, so that's the thing that brings me pause on this is, obviously, I don't want the families to have be in any more pain about any of this stuff. But at the same time, I think anyone with any level of kind of common sense understands that Remington Arms is not responsible for the death of any of those children.
No.
Because Remington Arms didn't show up at the school and do that.
No, Adam Lanza did. If anyone doesn't know or is following, is new to them, Adam Lanza was a sociopathic, was 17 or 18 years old. He was
a kid.
And he was, you pull up a picture of this guy, off the reservation.
Yeah, even in his picture, he's staring right through everyone. Yeah. Like, it's creepy.
He's a creepy dude. He took mom's rifle, killed her, and then went to the school and committed the massacre.
Yeah. So, you were telling me before, so they're trying to say that the advertising? Yeah,
it was an ad that the Bushmaster rifle that Remington was selling had I don't understand it, but I guess they had cause for it to move forward with litigation on because Remington Arms is no longer around. They've since closed up shop, foreclosed, and it was their underwriters on the insurance policy that are paying out the $73 million. Not Remington, not the arms manufacturer, but the insurance underwriters. Yeah, that's
All right, so this one's a little off screen, but I'm gonna pull it up here anyway.
there you go.
So if you look on the screen here, I don't know.
It had to do with marketing the weapon.
Yeah, so essentially it says the gun maker's advertising ran afoul of Connecticut law, plaintiffs argue. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know the Connecticut law that's specific about firearms or
Dangerous products or...
So maybe this isn't really a settlement against
It's not
firearms, but against
advertising. Yeah, so there's a big misconception with the firearms in America that firearms industries can't be sued for their products. That's not true. That's like remember Toyota had the throttles that stuck.
Oh yeah.
A few years ago. Well, they made a defective product and they knew that and they still let it out and it hurt people. You can still be sued if Remington or Smith & Wesson or Ruger created a product and it had known defects and people got hurt using that product, you can absolutely sue them.
Yeah.
But I think
but
this was a direct advertisement issue. Not the act of murder, but the advertisement of it.
Yeah, and it sounds like if I'm being honest, it sounds like this judge or the settlement was done just to get it over with, because there's no advertising that you could prove caused this to happen.
I mean, it's a stretch.
It's super stretch.
That's why it's a settlement.
Stretch
and not,
Armstrong, bro.
Yeah, like like between two cars being stretched down the driveway.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it like this: if I'm working on a car and I leave a wrench down in the engine compartment and somehow it gets stuck between, pulleys or the radiator fan, whatever it is, it gets stuck somewhere and causes the engine to explode and someone dies, it's not the wrench's fault.
Oh, it's your dumbass's fault.
Exactly. If I go to, take care of a patient and I don't turn the oxygen on and I just smother their face and don't, pump any air into their lungs. Why is he turning blue? It's not the non-rebreather or the bag valve mask that killed them. That would have been me as a
I'm the dummy. Yeah.
Like, you can't blame the tool.
No.
And it's funny because I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but it's just kind of another symptom of the no accountability society that we live in.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because instead of blaming
projection, no reflection.
Yeah, instead of blaming the person who committed this atrocity, we're blaming a tool. Because that's what a firearm is.
It's just a tool.
It's a tool for hunting. It's a tool for home protection, self-defense. It's a tool, and it can be used for recreation if you like shooting skeet or target shooting.
Yep.
Or tactical training, but that can be recreation or training. It's kind of the same thing, really. But it's just a tool. It's that's all it is. You can't blame. It didn't walk itself into the school and do those things. No,
Adam Lanza did, and a coward, he killed himself.
Yeah, and so, but you're seeing now. It only seems like now that and I don't really want to say the Democrats, because I really think it's just kind of like the extreme left is starting to turn away from the narrative of it being the weapons being bad, and at the same, this case just settled, right? And you think, oh, they're going towards weapons are bad.
Right, gun control. So they got what they wanted.
Yeah. But it turns out now, instead of blaming the gun, in a recent event that just happened with, what was it,
Quintet Brown?
I think it's Quintet Brown. Let me pull it up. I've got it.
He went in to assassinate a Democrat running for mayor in, was it New Mexico?
I don't think I see. I'll have it on the snapshot that I have here. Just give me 1 sec.
But after Sandy Hook, and I think it was after Parkland, the school shooting in Florida, he got real big into. He became a face for the teenage youth movement of gun control. He was all about big changes in America. We got to get these weapons off the street, and then lo and behold, he turns 21, buys a pistol, goes into a Kentucky mayoral candidate's office and opens fire, grazing the candidate. I don't think he killed anyone, but he was subsequently arrested, and he is now out on bail after a $100,000 bond that was posted
Brought up
by
BLM.
Yep, posted by a local BLM chapter.
Now,
So, go ahead. I'll let you tear into that.
so there's a bunch of stuff
Oh, yeah.
that's wrapped up in this that's going to become a contested issue, and it's going to be the conservatives coming at this like idiots, thinking that they're going against the far left because this guy comes in and he fires this shot or several shots, but he only skimmed his shirt.
Yeah, it was like the back of his shirt cut around.
So they're saying that this kid was mentally unfit because of the stress of the pandemic and everything like that. And so you have to be ready now for the Democrats to come at this and say, we need to police guns or control the ownership of guns using some sort of background psychiatric check. But nothing would have caught this.
No, nothing.
Because he didn't have a history of anything. I don't believe, maybe he just had a mental break, but...
He could have snapped.
Yeah, could have. I mean, they're crazy people. But the other thing that the conservatives, I think, are going to make a mistake about and fighting against is that BLM bailed him out, and the police there accepted the bail and let him go.
Those are the agreements.
So people will say, and by people, for the most part, I think based on this topic, that would be conservatives. They're going to be out there saying like, he's a danger. This guy, tried to murder people. And I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm just saying the bond system exists for a reason because you're innocent till proven guilty.
That's correct.
And if it weren't for the bond system or the way that this system operates, he could have been left in jail just rotting.
Well, we see that happen with...
Well, it's happening with the Jan 6
with poor people, yeah.
And with poor people. We see that a lot.
It's bad, yeah.
But fighting against this is actually fighting against yourself, because if you manage to get them to do bail reform to the point where like you can't get bail, especially if they deem it to be like an aggressive crime, which is, I would say this is, it's not going to be used against the people that are following the narrative, that are part of the agenda. And this guy here, this Quintet Brown, he's tied in with BLM. He's part of the overall agenda.
The big BLM,
It wouldn't matter if this, if every policy and procedure in the book said that this couldn't happen, he'd be allowed out.
Yes.
It's just because that's just the way prosecutors and DAs and everyone's just been kind of trying to treat this, or has been treating this. So if you push the changes and the reform, it's only going to hurt you as the non-agenda following, non-narrative following person.
Yeah, I mean, like, you try to be principled in all aspects of, like, the law, and you're, like you said, you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And then, you got to be tried by a group of your peers.
Yep.
The jury has to weigh in.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is...
as much as we know he's going to be hopefully found guilty and charged and all that, you can't...
I don't say hopefully found guilty, although it seems like it's pretty open and shut case, Johnson. But, if he's guilty, he's guilty. That's really all I mean.
Right.
Like, I don't want anyone to be guilty. But if you're guilty, I can't fix that. But there was one more part of this puzzle I wanted to bring up. Right here. So right here, so I'm going to read this for anyone who's on a, maybe you're just listening and not actually watching. So Black Lives Matter Louisville organizer Chanel Helm, who co-founded the Bail Fund, told the outlet that Brown would be safer out of prison and claimed that he was likely suffering from PTSD after 2 years of social unrest and the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, in this case, we're dealing with someone that has mental health issues, end quote, Helm said. Quote, they are calling for this individual, this young man who needs support and help, to be punished to the full extent, Helm added. Quote, it is resounding messaging that people are down for the torture that has taken place in our jails and prisons. I really just want to focus on how they're leaning on this as a mental health thing, which I know we've already touched on. But like everything else, you have to look at every action, especially when it comes down to pushing for policy reform and law reform. You have to look big picture, use some foresight. Imagine you're the minority group and you're the one that's, under the boot of government. You don't want to vote for a law that sounds like it's good for you right now. Like it sounds like it's good for the people to, potentially create a law that prevents someone who allegedly has mental health issues
Correct.
From owning a gun. It sounds good in theory, but
Who's the arbiter of that, though?
but who decides?
Right, who's the arbiter
And then
to decide
if it's your doctor, what happened to your privacy, your HIPAA rights?
Yeah.
Like your client, your.
What if your doctor's anti-gun?
Yeah, exactly. Or what if your doctor just starts, wanting to hook up with your girlfriend or something?
Let's get rid of his guns.
And they know you have guns.
Yeah. You bet your ass I'm getting rid of them.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. It's like when you leave things like that kind of just ambiguous as far as how they can be taken away and the rules and the interpretation of them can be molded to strip people of their rights at your whim. As
it stands now, if to be mentally adjudicated, that means you actually have to go before the judge, and the judge has to decree you mentally defect.
Yeah.
And at that point, you can't have firearms. But that's not a short road. That's a long road to, get to that point. And you don't see it very often in the what the ATF reports on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think on bail reform and some of the stuff that people are all upset about that he's out on bail. I mean, in New Hampshire, we've sat through 2-3 years now of Hassan's bail reform she left us, and we've got people that are doing really bad things that are just PR'd right out onto the street, and it makes no sense to most people.
Oh my God! You just give me 1 second.
You can have a few because I saw that light bulb.
Okay, so the fact that a lot of these policy changes, and some of it's kind of like cultural changes, because they're supposed to enforce these laws and they're just not. Like the police aren't, or
the ATF,
or the local leadership in that community is not allowing the police to perform their duties, even though it is against the law. Like the things that are being done in their communities, and it's a detriment to everyone. Not just the people being victimized by the crimes that are being allowed to continue. So let me see if I can pull this up. I sent it to you not long ago. I'm really sorry for the delay here.
Scrolling.
So the reason why I bring it up is because you're seeing people being allowed to run into stores, loot, steal everything, attack people, unprovoked too. Like you've got elderly people are being abused on the streets by complete strangers, blindsiding them. Nothing is happening to these people. Nothing's happening to the people robbing the stores. But try to walk in without a mask on.
Yeah, watch what happens.
You can literally go in and steal $950 worth of stuff and run out.
Walk out.
And no one will say a word. But try to walk in without a piece of cloth on your face.
Before you do the robbery.
And you are a villain. So I have it here somewhere. But, I mean, I find this to be the most absurd thing because, like, it's with things not being enforced appropriately, and then you enforce this while letting other things that should be properly enforced.
They're closing businesses down because of this.
I thought I sent this to you. I can't find it.
They are literally closing down like Rite Aids and Targets in the Bay Area because you know what? It was on the ballot and the people voted for it, and here they are. They're dealing with it now.
Yeah.
So you got what you wanted, and I don't feel bad for them at this point.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the shop owners.
So Ami Horowitz
Love them.
tweeted this. It goes, Walgreens security in San Francisco. Watch people shoplift and don't say a word. Ami, walked in not wearing a mask, and 2 employees ran up and put their hands on me to stop me from entering. This is clown world. Like,
The upside down.
it doesn't even make sense. So, like, you're more worried about someone not breathing air without that little tiny useless thing in front of their face.
But I can steal from you, no problem.
Yeah, but you can steal no problem. That's the thing that drives me crazy. Is it seems like we're just
How do
allowing.
you just allow that to happen?
So I think I got on that because of the Sandy Hook thing, because it brings the
Accountability.
zero personal accountability precedent is set. So like you can go in and rob places and there's no accountability to you. Essentially, it's the store that is the problem because they didn't stop you from.
Well, yeah, and then you've got the DAs out there in LA and San Francisco that are, they're just letting anything just in and out of the prisons as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So I don't know why anyone lives in those areas. It's the weather. It's the weather.
Yeah.
And the earthquakes and the fires and the crime and the disease.
Well, they got free crack pipes. Actually,
Hey, safe smoking kits.
yes, and with crack pipes and meth pipes in them, and pipe extenders so you don't burn your lip.
Well, your fingers will get them too close.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's like essentially a roach clip for your
Yeah,
crack pipe.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Let's see here. I don't really want to go further into the Freedom Convoy. Did we cover that?
Yeah,
already?
we talked about Trudeau and the Emergency Act. I think we could push out to our global sphere now.
All right. Good old Russia. We talked about Russia last time, and we kind of just talked about how it didn't look like Russia was positioned to launch an attack. It didn't look as though there was an imminent invasion.
Well, and it's seasonal training for them in that area.
Yeah. And so that was the big part of it, is they're doing their seasonal training with Belarus. So they have different units out performing different training scenarios, which is not unheard of. We do this. Every country that has a military does this. Otherwise, you aren't ready.
That's right.
Like, you have to maintain a level of readiness so that if something happens and you have to respond,
You can effectively
you're
do that.
ready.
Yeah, weird.
So, anyway, what's been really crazy for this week is you've been seeing just a whirlwind of news that literally tells you one thing, then tells you the opposite thing, then tells you you're dumb for noticing the two, and then tells you that was all a lie. I mean, literally,
We call that Dutch door action.
Yeah.
We get it from both ends.
They're literally saying, you see one news report that says that Russian troops have withdrawn, which is, as far as I know, I believe that's true because they finished their training and they're going back to base.
Correct.
For the most part. Then you see another report that says actually the numbers have increased. So, and they're going to launch an offensive. And, then I have, my tattoo artist, her brother's in the Russian military, says that this is not what's going on and that they're not going to attack. And you can actually go to the Russian foreign policy website. Let me see if I can pull this up for you.
Yeah, I was just reading it before we started this tonight.
It might still be, all right, I have to translate.
Oh, yeah, I had to do it too.
But this is great. So anyone who's not watching, so from the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, this is a government website in Russia. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily the end-all, be-all of anything, because I don't trust our government to write the truth in anything either.
No.
However, this is what Russia is saying. And the title of it is Examples of Publication of a Large-Scale Disinformation Campaign of Western Media Promoting the Thesis about the Allegedly Impending Invasion of Russia into Ukraine. And then it shows just an onslaught of articles claiming that Russia is, going to invade Ukraine, or one even said Russia already invaded Ukraine this week.
Well, yeah, I think it was today they said Russia launched an artillery strike that went into a kindergarten room. They're really trying to drum up the war band right now.
Come on, fear for the kids. Fear for the
But
kids.
you screw with kids and it's war.
So I don't know if I'm going to go into the whole thing, but just aside from the pictures, there's a snapshot of multiple articles at the top. But at the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, the global information space was faced with a media campaign unprecedented in its scale and elaboration, the purpose of which is to convince the world community that the Russian Federation is preparing an invasion of the territory of Ukraine. I mean, I don't think they're lying, because I kind of scan and monitor all different channels of information, and even the CNNs, even though it's mostly for humor, because what they report as serious information is
That's why their viewership sucks, because
Yeah,
it's bad information.
It's terrible, but even still, you can watch these if you take in your information from enough different sources, you can start to feel out who's trying to persuade you one way, who's boldly lying.
Oh yeah.
And some of them are lying for the sake of triggering you, because they want the clickbait. Some of them are lying for the sake of triggering you to go to war. They want you to be on board with the war.
What do you think the percentage is in the United States that would support any type of U.S. involvement in a Ukraine-Russia engagement?
I think it's incredibly low. I think the number of people, if you were to poll people on the street, don't take the Twitterati, because those aren't real people.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I bet you if you could track down a lot of the people on Twitter that pretend to be, regular people, they're probably not even American citizens. They're probably paid bots, if not algorithmic bots. But if you were to have a poll of just various people that you were to just interact with in your community, or if you went even to Boston, which I think is pretty liberal for the Northeast, I think you'd be under 30%. I think
it'd be under 20%.
Yeah. I really don't think there are people that support this. I don't think the military supports it. And I don't think anyone it's not that I think Russia would beat us, but we have no reason to go to war.
We have no skin in this game.
So there's no point in this. And if the reason that we're saying we have to is to protect Ukraine, just give them back their nukes.
Yep, problem solved. Here you go, guys. Good luck.
All of a sudden, Ukraine is now just as intimidating as Russia, because they can wipe each other off the map. It's mutually assured destruction. It's a real thing. It works. It's the only reason Iran exists. It's the only reason. Like, we're they've been working on their nukes. I'm pretty sure they have nukes.
Oh, I'm sure they have one.
I'm pretty sure they have them.
That's
Clinton gave them a bunch of depleted uranium.
Oh, the North Koreans, the Pakistanis, they have. India has nukes. France,
so
England.
those are the things that are keeping countries like that from being wiped off the earth. North Korea.
Yeah.
Have you seen North Korea? Like,
they hungry.
There's nothing going on there. If someone wanted to wipe that country off the face of the earth, they could. If another country wanted to do it. It's the only thing preventing that action from being taken is the threat of them getting one of their nukes off before you hit them with yours.
Right, or being able to intercept it.
Yeah. So this whole thing with Russia. So you've got, like, Bloomberg is just pushing out garbage, just tons and tons of garbage. Bloomberg is the outfit, at least that you can see on the screen, saying that they've already invaded Ukraine. It never happened.
Oh, they produced the report of the mass graves that was going to pull Russian forces in. Like, come on.
I wonder if they had any hand in the report about the mass graves in Canada last year. And what's interesting, just side note for 1 second, those mass graves were very, very old. They had nothing to do with COVID, but they brought it up during COVID to really trigger people.
Like, Gotta get that narrative out there.
Some people got flabbergasted. Just, oh, I can't believe it. It's like, oh, the children. It's like, yeah, where were you like 50 years ago,
When
or
they died.
actually longer than that, when this was even a relevant
Yeah.
story? But anyway,
But yeah, they've pushed the kindergartens, the mass graves. What's in it for Russia?
yeah, and I know we're kind of beating a dead horse, and because we talked about this to some extent.
Well, we've been to war. We don't
Yeah.
want people to go and deal with that.
If you haven't been to a war zone, you don't want to.
You don't want to. It's not nice.
It's not like you might think you want to because action movies make it look
Yeah, it's
really
romanticized.
cool. But like you're not going to walk in like Steven Seagal and live through it. As a matter of fact, if Steven Seagal, the way that he does his thing in action movies, if he ever did that in a real life situation, Steven Seagal wouldn't last more than 5 minutes.
That's generous.
Now, just based on how he acts in his movies.
You talking 1980s Steven
Like,
Seagal?
I don't know, like Under Siege. I don't know.
Okay, maybe.
But like under
Chief
you know,
Ryback's
he's
got a
like,
chance.
"Cha-cha." But like you know, he's just people think that somehow you're gonna have this glorious ability to kind of move through the firefight and kill the enemy, and then in reality, you don't get through the firefight seamlessly. There's a high probability of losing your own people.
Yep.
You're likely to get injured, and then if you do manage to kill the enemy, there's that chance that you have that moment where you actually see them and realize they're a friggin' person.
And it changes people.
I didn't have to go through that part of it, and I'm very thankful for it. But I also, I have a pretty open-minded thing, so like I understand what I was able to avoid. Whereas a lot of people, especially young people, like the age that you are when most people join the military,
Yeah.
you don't have that. It's probably a maturity thing. And I'm not saying that they're immature because they're putting up their life, but
Yeah, it's a wisdom thing,
wisdom.
knowledge.
It's
and,
wisdom.
Yeah. And I guess we're lucky enough to be old enough to talk about it.
yeah. But you know what?
We just don't want to see a whole generation of young servicemen and women get dicked
Yeah, you
for
know
a
what?
stupid war again.
So that's the big part of this. So whether or not you believe that we should go to war with Russia or any country really, we don't live in the traditional war climate that used to exist.
No.
It's not going to be, storming the beaches, and it's going to be eroding your culture, subverting your government, subverting, the principles of your freedoms and liberties. And sadly, we're seeing this everywhere. I actually think Russia might be one of the most pro-freedom countries around right now.
Man.
Like,
All right, on that note, everyone.
well, he's making.
I know.
Did you see what he said about Trudeau? So
Trudeau paints a very bad picture.
Well, he's just the worst. Did you? So I don't know if you follow. There's I think it's a Twitter profile called Defiant L's, and they just list when people make a comment about one thing, like a hard stance against something, like years ago, and then they make a new one that's because it's no longer in their narrative. They'll make a new comment that's totally against that previous one, and he puts them, he or she,
Outstanding.
always plugs them together. I'll pull it up right now. We got a little bit of time. Let me go to the main shot here. Give me just a second. Define.
I mean, yeah, look at, so in regards to that, Putin comment that he might be one of the most pro-freedom people right now, we're having to take freedom inspiration from our icy neighbors to the north about freedom and liberty and values and virtue in the face of, they're out there being peaceful and polite. And I got to tell you, the governments that are going to march on them are not peaceful and polite.
So this is a good one.
Oh, man. This did not age well.
Paying off your kid's student loan debt can feel overwhelming. We need a president who understands that. And then Biden today, or late last year,
2 years later,
Biden won't extend student loan relief.
Gotcha.
Oh, Brooklyn dad. I'm not going to read it because, he'll probably make a big mess of it. But that guy's always getting beat up because he says dumb shit. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing, define L. Let me find one more. Okay, Trudeau, that's a good one. All right, so this is Trudeau back in 2012. When a government starts trying to cancel dissent or avoid dissent is when it's rapidly losing its moral authority to govern. And that's a quote that he put up there from Harper. Then Trudeau, just recently, the ongoing blockades and occupations are presenting serious challenges to law enforcement's ability to effectively enforce the law. Because of that, the federal government is invoking the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity.
Trash.
Polar opposite stances.
Trash.
This guy is, he's the equivalent to, I mean, in your personal life, it'd be like a fair weather friend. You know, the person.
He's a fucking tin pot little tyrant right now who's, like we said earlier, is just backed into a corner. And he's either going to, shit his pants or come out fighting. And I hope he just shits his pants and just falls apart. I can't stand the guy.
I agree. I want this one caught. We talked about this topic tonight too. So Quintet Brown. So this girl, she's got a check mark. I don't know who she is. I can't wait to vote for @Quintet Brown one day. And then, just recently in the news, Quintet Brown, 21, faces charges of attempted murder and several charges of wanton endangerment. So you're seeing. I would say that with the mainstream left and the far left, I don't think they represent Democrats. I don't think they represent classic Democrats. So there are a lot of people that are caught in this bubble now that feel like they have to defend themselves because they've been a Democrat for so long, that when you try to insult like the AOCs of the world,
they're
or
idiots.
the Ilhan Omars and stuff, they feel like you're insulting them. But what they don't understand is they just need to distance themselves from that. When I make fun of the far left, I'm not talking about.
You're talking the Omars, the
liberal.
AOCs,
I'm actually, but I do. If you look at the establishment, Democrats by far are the establishment.
Correct.
So, I have friends that I think are Democrats that don't actually align with the Democrats. They just think they do. Because when we talk about regular things and we discuss problems and solutions and what shouldn't happen to make sure that
we align.
Yeah,
90% of the time.
It's pretty centered, but I don't know if it was their parents or
it's
if
usually
it was
where it
their
is.
School or whatever it was, but they're convinced that they have to vote Democrat, regardless. And I had one person. I mean, this was great. I laughed. I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything mean, but so I went to say hi to a guy. He's a Democrat, which doesn't bother me. So I swing by and I say hi. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing? You're working on your driveway. That's cool. And it was right in the middle of election season, so we start talking about it. And he immediately jumps in and goes, well, as soon as Trump's gone, Trump's out of here, Biden's gonna fix everything, and we're gonna be so much better. And this was at the point where, we were already so far along in this that we already knew that he was, cognitively unable.
Right. We established that Joe's been in decline for a while.
So it was just, do you think when a person says that, like when he said that to me, do you think he was saying that to me to convince me or to convince himself?
Or it's to convince their own beliefs that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
I imagine that I don't think Democrats are bad people. I don't think Republicans are bad people. I just think the blinders need to come off a little bit and show face a little bit and realize what's going on.
Yeah.
Just take a moment, everybody. It's nice out. Go out and see something. I don't know. Have a conversation with someone. Don't chew their head off.
Think of it like this. If we could wrap up everything kind of into one little thing. Don't do drugs.
And don't do government drugs.
Yeah, don't do government drugs.
Mm-mm.
Even if they're providing you with your safe smoking kits.
They probably got that high
brandy
quality
new
shit
crack
too.
Pipes and meth pipes. Don't do drugs. And when someone dies, and you see their reputation starts to get kind of dragged through the mud in the media, or if it's someone that personally, like, so it'd be in your own little community, just try to take a step back and realize that there's probably more to it that you don't really know. And there's always the the privacy of the loved ones.
Families, yep.
And so you don't want to deal a blow to the reputation of someone who's passed, especially if they weren't just an outright
Jerk.
Yeah. Like Bob Saget he's funny.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
He was a great. He'll be remembered forever. Well, at least in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Self-accountability. This goes back to a lot of these things, like don't do the drugs. That's a self-accountability thing. Don't shoot people. That's a self-accountability thing.
Don't hurt people.
Yeah, don't hurt people. Self-accountability. And then the one thing in here that's not necessarily self-accountability, but it can be, you can use a fun roundabout way to get there, is the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Act, and the emergency powers for Trudeau. He's removing self-accountability from the people by forcing them to have to be vaccinated and this and that. They're not allowed to make decisions. So they want their self-accountability back. They want to be responsible for their own decisions and have bodily autonomy, medical freedom. The things that in America, I think we took for granted. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that they fucked up.
Yeah, it's very precious.
And now we're clawing tooth and nail to get them, to maintain them and get them back. And then it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't fall prey to this propaganda war that we're seeing. Whether it's the bots that you're seeing interact on Twitter, or you're seeing, propaganda about just like this Russia-Ukraine thing. Try to verify. Like if I saw it on Fox, I'm not going to take it as gospel.
Absolutely not.
If I see it on CNN, I'm going to check at least 4 sources before I verify it somewhere else. If I see it on Wikipedia, I'm not going to consider that a fact. As a matter of fact, if you refer someone to Wikipedia in an argument about something
You lost.
that's vitally important, or even just, it could be a petty argument, you've lost.
You've lost.
You've lost. And you know what? If we don't do this, if we don't maintain self-accountability, what happens to us?
We fall apart. We're no longer who we are. We have no principle
And we get
dicked hard.
every time. So whether you want to get dicked and have to pay out all your money,
Yeah, no,
or lose your ability to make money,
that sucks. That's getting really dicked.
or get sent to war that isn't even a real war.
That's green weenie right there.
Yeah. And another topic that we put off that we meant to talk about today, or your money gets stolen by criminal actors in the market.
That leads us into next week on episode 3.
Hopefully by
Alex
that
is going
time.
to take charge on that bad Larry of the stock markets and all that. He's got a ton of knowledge, and you really got to tune into that. It's going to be pretty impressive.
It's going to be a good time. So, like last time, like every time, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Ding it.
Yep, ding it every time. Share this video. This is a new show, so our audience reaches as far as you're willing to take us at this point. So, next week we're going to be talking about the criminal Wall Street actors. It's going to be a broad brush, though, because if you start going down the rabbit hole, everything is very in depth. There's a lot going on there. So this is all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And
Semper Fallis. Try not to get dicked.
Yeah, Semper Fallis.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay aware and you won't get dicked.